It was the coldest winter in years. The river had frozen over, and the trees stood still like quiet sentinels, cloaked in snow. The air bit into the skin like little needles, and most creatures, human or animals, sought shelter. But there, among the lifeless gray, was a dog. No one knew where he came from. Some said he belonged to an old woman who had passed away the year before. Others said he had always been there, wandering near the riverbank, sleeping beside the docks, appearing in the early morning mist and vanishing by nightfall. He had no collar, no name, and seemingly no home. The children who passed by called him Frost, because of the white patches on his fur that looked like permanent snowflakes. Frost wasn't the kind of dog people notice much. He didn't beg. He didn't bark. He didn't run after people or cars. He simply existed, observing, quiet, distant. He would lie near the edge of the frozen river and watch the fishermen. He would follow the sound of laughter from far away and stop when it got too close. He never stepped too near except once. It was a day like any other, though colder. Emma had begged her father to let her go with her older brother to the river. She loved skating on the ice. She had done it many times. Her brother Max was just a few years older, but already more concerned with his phone than the world around him. He watched her from a distance half-heartedly, his breath fogging up as he scrolled and swiped. Emma twirled on the frozen surface, her scarf fluttering like a ribbon in the wind. She laughed out loud, the kind of laughter that makes the heart ache with joy. Frost, lying not far away under a tree, opened his eyes slowly and looked in her direction. He watched her for a long time. Something about her voice, her smile, reminded him of something he had long forgotten. Then it happened. The ice beneath Emma cracked with a loud snap. At first it was subtle, a soft creaking, a shift in the tone of her skating. But then it happened. Fast. A crack spread like lightning under her feet. She gasped. Then the ice gave way. She didn't even have time to scream properly. One moment she was upright, laughing. The next, she was gone, swallowed by black, freezing water. Max looked. Up too late. At first, he thought she had fallen and would pull herself up. But when her hands slapped against the surface, flailing, panicking, his heart stopped. He screamed her name. Emma! He ran, his feet slipping across the ice, his phone dropping from his hand and shattering on the frozen ground. But he didn't reach her in time. Frost, however, had already moved. No one noticed him at first. No one heard him rise. But in a blur of white and brown, he dashed toward the cracking ice. His paws struck the frozen surface with grace and certainty, as though he had done this before. Emma's hands slipped under. Her face appeared again, her eyes wide with terror, lips blue already. The current below pulled her dress, twisting her. Like a doll in water, Frost reached the edge of the broken ice and didn't hesitate. He jumped. The splash was deep, loud, and final. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then Max screamed again. The people nearby ran toward the sound. An old fisherman dropped his gear and ran with arms flailing. A woman gasped and covered her mouth. With trembling fingers, no one could believe it, a dog had gone in. Below the ice, it was a world of cold death. Emma's small arms tried to paddle upward, but she was disoriented. Her eyes burned, her lungs begged for air. She saw a movement, shape in the dark. A blur. Frost. He reached her in the blackness, grabbed at her coat with his teeth, and began to pull. Above the surface, the current had slowed. The broken ice clinked together like shattered glass. For seconds that felt like hours, nothing moved. Then, a splash, a snout, a paw, a girl's arm. Frost pulled her upward with strength no one thought possible. He struggled, whining, thrashing, but he didn't let go. He held her like something precious. The fisherman waded in with a rope. Max screamed and ran into the water, cutting his legs on the sharp edges of ice, not caring. Others followed. They pulled Emma out, shivering, breathless but alive. Frost didn't climb out. He floated for a moment. His eyes blinked slowly. His breaths came shorter, tried to paddle, to push forward, but the strength was fading. One paw lifted. One last look. Then he sank. "No!" someone shouted. Max screamed again. The old man with the rope threw it out, but it was too late. Frost was gone. Silence fell again. Snow began to drift down like ash. Emma coughed. She opened her eyes slowly. She whispered something. "Where's the dog?" They had no answer. The people tried. They called divers. They searched. But the water was too deep, too dark, too cold. Night, the town didn't sleep. A hero had saved a little girl and vanished beneath the ice. The wind howled that night as if mourning. The rescue teams packed up one by one, their shoulders hunched with the weight of helplessness. The flashlight beam swept across the river's edge again and again, but there was no sign of the dog. No body, no ripple, no paw print left behind. Just silence. Emma lay under warm blankets in a hospital bed, her face pale, her lips still tinged with blue. The doctors said she was lucky, that someone up there was watching over her. But Max knew it wasn't someone from above. It was someone from here, someone with fur. Someone who had no voice, but had done what no one else dared. Her parents stood by her bed, their eyes red, their hands trembling as they held hers. "She'll recover," the nurse said gently. "She's strong." But Emma's first words after waking were soft, cracked, and full of pain. "Did the dog make it out?" Or hesitated. Her father knelt beside her. "He saved you, sweetheart. You're safe now." Emma frowned. "But is he safe?" No one had the heart to lie. Her mother gently shook her head, tears running down her cheeks. Emma turned her face away. The story spread through town by morning. The silent dog. The ice. The jump. The miracle. The loss. People spoke of it like a legend, like something mythically yet too real to ignore. Children who had once laughed at Frost's strange, quiet ways now wept. Adults who had never offered him a bowl of food now stood with guilt on their faces. Someone left a candle at the riverbank. Then another left a flower. Then someone else placed a wooden sign with a single word burned into it. Hero. The local newspaper ran the story on the front page. Unnamed dog sacrifices himself to save local girl. There was no photo of him. Just a drawing a child had made a figure with snow on its back and eyes, full of quiet light. Emma didn't speak for a day, then 2, then 3. The doctors worried about trauma. But it wasn't fear that silenced her. It was longing. She would look at the window, eyes fixed, as if expecting something or someone. Max sat beside her most evenings. He had stopped using his phone. He didn't scroll. He didn't text. He just sat and waited, the way Frost had once sat near the docks. "You think he'll come back?" Emma asked one night. Max looked out the window. "Snow is falling again." "I don't know," he whispered. "I hope so." She nodded. He looked at me under the ice. I remember. His eyes weren't afraid. They were calm. Like he knew exactly what he was doing. Max swallowed hard. Maybe he did. A week later, Emma was allowed to go home. Her family walked slowly, carefully. The doctors insisted she rest. But Emma had one request. She wanted to go to the river first. Her father hesitated, but then agreed. When they reached the spot, the ice had mostly frozen over again. The sign that read Hero was now surrounded by dozens of candles, small, stuffed animals, and pictures drawn by children. One child had left a dog biscuit. Emma stepped forward and placed something down. It was a red ribbon, her favorite one. He liked it, she said softly. He followed it with his eyes when I skated. Family stood in silence. Then Emma turned to leave, but stopped. She looked back and blinked. Far off beyond the trees, figure stood. Still, quiet. A dog, white patches on his back. Max followed her gaze and gasped. "Is that?" But before anyone could speak, the figure turned and disappeared. Into the woods, they ran, slipped, called out. Nothing, no paw prints, no sound, just the wind. Emma smiled faintly. He's still watching. The town began to change. A statue was commissioned. Small, simple, but beautiful. A dog sitting near the river, his head slightly tilted, watching. People came from other towns to see it. Snow blanketed the town in stillness, but the statue near the river became a place of quiet life. People left letters, toys, photos of their pets, and sometimes just sat beside it without saying a word. It had become more than a memorial. It was a reminder of kindness, sacrifice, of a dog no one had truly seen until it was too late. But some still believed he was not gone. Emma believed it. Every day after school, even in the bitter cold, she would walk with Max to the statue. She'd sit beside it and talk to it like it could hear her. She spoke of her day, her drawings, her dreams, her hopes that one day she'd see him again. Max didn't tease. He just listened. He had changed to winter slowly softened. The river began to thaw. The air smelled different. Emma no longer shivered when she looked at the water. Instead, she looked with something close to gratitude, respect. She had seen death that day, but she had also seen something greater. One evening, as the sky turned orange and the sun melted into the horizon, Emma sat beside the statue as usual. The snow around it had started to recede. She ran her fingers along the paw, carefully carved from stone. Then she paused there. In the muddy patch below the statue were prints. Paw prints. Fresh, she called Max. He ran over, skidding to a stop. His eyes went wide. He bent down and touched one of the prints. "It's real," he whispered. They followed the trail slowly, crossed the edge of the river, up toward the tree line. It weaved through the snow and into the woods. But just before, it disappeared into the thick pines. It stopped right in front of the old boat shed by the river. The door was slightly ajar. Max reached for the handle. Emma held her breath. Inside it was dark and cold. Dust hung in the air. Old ropes, nets, broken oars, everything sat untouched. But in the far corner, under a tarp, something moved. A quiet whimper. Then, it's the softest sound of claws on wood. A dog, Frost. He was thinner, his fur matted. One leg was clearly hurt. But his eyes, they were the same, calm, watchful, deep as the river he had jumped into. Emma gasped. Tears welled in her eyes. "You came back," she whispered. Frost didn't move. Max stepped forward slowly, holding his hands out. "It's okay," he said. "Gently, you're safe now." Frost blinked, then lowered his head. Max knelt down, tears on his cheeks. "You saved my sister. Let us save you now." Emma walked over carefully and held out her red ribbon. Frost sniffed it, then licked her fingers. "They took him home? The vet said it was a miracle he was alive. He had deep bruising, some frostbite, and an infection in one leg, but with care, he would recover. He must have survived by hiding, avoiding people, crawling back into the woods, holding on by sheer instinct. And maybe something more. Maybe. He waited until he knew Emma was safe. That night, for the first time in weeks, Emma slept peacefully. And Frost. He curled at the foot of her bed, breathing slow and steady. No longer the stray. No longer the silent watcher. He was home. Word spread quickly. People came again. Not to mourn, but to celebrate. The statue remained not as a memory of a lost hero, but a tribute to one who lived. Emma told her story. At school, in videos. Quietly, humbly. But it was Frost who taught her the real lessons. That kindness doesn't need words. That heroes don't always wear uniforms. And sometimes, those we ignore are the ones who would give everything to save us. Frost's return became more than a miracle, became a movement. The town that once walked past him now embraced him. Children made drawings. Elderly women baked for him. The local bakery kept a bowl of warm food outside its door labeled, "For Frost, our guardian." The mayor even declared a day in his honor, Frost Day, a celebration of silent kindness. But Frost didn't seem interested in fame. He stayed close to Emma, always at her side. He walked with her to school, waited quietly outside until she returned, and slept near her feet every night. He no longer hid from people, but he never craved their attention. His calm presence was enough to make even the loudest street feel gentle. Emma blossomed. Her fear of the water slowly faded. With Frost by her side, she walked again near the river. She spoke at school assemblies about bravery, not her own, but his. And when asked how she had survived that day, she never spoke of chance. She only said one word: Frost. Max changed. Too, he joined an animal shelter as a volunteer. He helped strays, built shelters for the winter. He told people, "I used to look down at my phone. Now I look up at the ones who wait quietly." But seasons shift, and peace is never eternal. Spring came. The river roared again, alive and fast. Trees bloomed, streets sang with laughter. But one morning something disrupted the quiet. It was a scream, a child. Emma and Frost were in the park when they heard it. A boy no older than 6 had fallen into the river while playing on the slippery edge. His toy boat had drifted too far. He had leaned out, slipped, and now the current was dragging him fast toward the bend. People ran, but the boy was already far from shore. Emma's heart stopped. Her hands trembled. The memory of that freezing day surged back, but this time it wasn't her in the water. It was someone else's child. And there was no time. Frost had already moved. This time, Emma didn't scream. She didn't panic. She trusted Frost ran faster than anyone had ever seen. His paws tore across the ground, his body a blur of muscle and memory. The river was swollen and wild, but Frost leapt. A perfect arc. A flash of white in the air, then a splash. The crowd gasped. Some prayed, some cried. But Emma watched with silent strength. Frost swam hard, the current battering him. But he reached the boy just as the child slipped under. Frost dove, grabbed the boy's shirt with his teeth, and pulled. The boy surfaced, coughing, gasping. Frost didn't let go. By then, 2 men had reached the far bend. They threw a rope. One waded in. Together they pulled the boy out, and Frost, soaked, exhausted, trembling but alive. The boy cried in his mother's arms, and Frost. He lay down right there on the riverbank, panting, tail wagging slowly. His eyes closed for a moment, just a moment. Emma knelt beside him. "You came back to the river," she whispered, stroking his wet fur. Frost opened one eye, then closed it again. Not in pain, just at peace. He had done it again. The town roared with love. The mayor arrived in minutes. The local news covered the story, but Emma didn't let the cameras overwhelm Frost. She knew his nature. She knew he didn't care for fame only. For purpose, that night she wrapped him in her old red scarf, the same one she'd worn the day he saved her life. She tied it gently around his neck. "You've saved 2 lives now," she said, her voice catching. Frost simply looked up at her, that same calm, knowing gaze, as if saying, "I would do it all again." The next morning, outside the statue, the children added a second word beneath hero. It read, "Protect." Time moved gently after that. Frost recovered from the river rescue slowly. He slept more, walked slower. His eyes still held that quiet fire, but his body was growing tired. The vet called it age, and perhaps the toll of cold and injury from long ago, but to Emma, it felt more like he had completed something like a chapter closing. He had nothing left to prove, no one left to save. The town knew it too. And so, in silent respect, they gave him peace. No crowds, no noise, just love. Emma spent her days reading to him. She sat under the tree in their backyard, where the sun hit the ground in a perfect warm circle, and read her favorite stories aloud. Sometimes Frost watched the birds. Sometimes he closed his eyes, but he was always there. Max built him a small wooden bed by the fireplace, lined with soft blankets and a handmade pillow with Frost's name embroidered by Emma herself. Each morning, Frost greeted them with a gentle tail wag. Each night, he lay beside Emma's bed, rising only to check on her during thunderstorms. It was a life of quiet devotion. But on one crisp evening, as the leaves began to fall, Emma found Frost lying outside under the tree where they always read. He was still, too still. His eyes were closed, his body at ease. His red scarf fluttered softly in the breeze. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. Not right away. She knelt beside him, pressed her face into his fur, and whispered, "Thank you." Max came running. Then her parents, then the neighbors. By nightfall, candles surrounded the tree, flowers, drawings, notes. The whole town came. Not because Frost was a dog, but because Frost was love. He was buried beneath that very tree, wrapped in his red scarf. The statue by the river was updated one last time, plaque added beneath the words hero and protector. It said simply, "Friend, years passed." Emma grew older. She spoke at schools about kindness, courage, and the unseen heroes around us. She never got another dog, not because she didn't want one, but because she felt no dog could be him. Yet every time she saw a dog sitting silently in the distance, she paused. She always wondered. One snowy morning, she brought her own little girl, barely 5, to the river. "This is where I was saved," she told her. The girl looked at the statue. "By a knight," Emma smiled. "Better by a dog." The girl blinked. "What was his name?" Emma looked up at the sky, took a deep breath, and whispered, "Frost." Her daughter looked down at the snow and then gasped. "Mom, look." They were in the snow to paw prints, just two, side by side. Not new, not old. Just there. Emma felt something in her chest tighten. But she didn't cry. She smiled, because she believed some souls never leave, especially those who come into this world to save, to protect, and to love. Quietly and somewhere in the distance, the wind blew gently through the trees, and it almost sounded like the wag of a tail.